As promised from the worldwide leader in sports, he will be on NFL Live an hour after we are done, 4 Eastern on ESPN later on today, taking it kickoff of the big Monday night finale between Seattle and Philadelphia. Dan Orlovsky here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Dan?
Rich, I'm doing well. It's an honor and a pleasure to be on with you, man.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you very much. And I really have been enjoying your work on ESPN and definitely appreciate your opinions on so many items. First up for bids is what we saw last night on Sunday Night Football with the Bears. How in the world does Chicago rectify their quarterback position in your estimation right now, Dan?
Yeah, I think the Bears as an organization are probably looking at a complete overhaul because Ryan Pace has got to be responsible in some capacity. Listen, he built a lot of good pieces at defense, but he's also built this offense in the selection of Mitchell Trubisky. And then Matt Nagy is in many ways handpicked to not like he didn't pick Mitchell Trubisky, but he was handpicked to develop Mitchell Trubisky. And while Mitchell might not be obviously Deshaun and Patrick, he hasn't gotten better. And so that has to be pegged on management and coaching, that the lack of development at that position has got to fall on their shoulders. And then for Mitchell, I have said for about almost 2 years now that I think they use him poorly. I don't think they accentuate his skill set. That being said, at the end of the day, he's not good enough. In 2020, with the quarterbacks, the young ones that we have in the NFL right now, Mitchell is not going to be good enough to carry your franchise forward and to be a bona fide winner and legit playoff contender and then Super Bowl champion. So while he's athletic and has a skill set, and I do think hasn't been accentuated, at the end of the day, they're going to have to move on from him. I think it's likely they move on from Matt Nagy from the lack of development and the lack of leadership. And I think it's fair to say Ryan Pace, as the general manager and the guy that handpicked him, is going to be on the hot seat as well.
Yeah, I know. There was a shot, NBC's cameras caught Pace in his mask just shaking his head. Kind of was a perfect, image of what's going on with the Bears. And they were 5-1, Dan. I mean, was that all just smoke and mirrors and mirage? I mean, how does a team go 5-1 to 5-6 like that?
Well, their defense was dominant, and they were winning games because of the defense. And so, that's kind of where I always get into it with people when people say, well, defense wins championships. In 2005, it did, yes. That's not the case anymore. Because of the rules and the understanding of space and how much smarter offensive coaches are and the skill sets of so many different people in the quarterback run game, that doesn't prove to be true anymore. And I thought when they made the move to Nick Foles, I did not think that was the right choice, although I love Nick. And I said, okay, well, if Nick just throws the ball to the right place, they should be decent enough where their defense is going to keep them in every game. And then Nick started to really turn the ball over, and that offense started to slow down. And then that Bears, it just put such a big burden on the defense. And I think the defense is at the point where they're just – this is 3 years now. This is 3 years now of being a championship caliber defense in Chicago and having to go out there and going, if we don't score as a defense and we give up 2 touchdowns, we're probably going to lose the game. And I think that is just weighing so heavily on their defense.
NFL veteran quarterback, now at the worldwide leader in sports from ESPN, Dan Orlovsky here on the Rich Eisen Show. So you're saying there'll be not one but 2 teams cleaning house in the NFC North because the Lions did that over the weekend. Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn are out. And that led me to take to Twitter, it essentially pounding the table for something that I know it won't happen. But hire Jim Caldwell back and choose a GM who knows him and go to work is what I tweeted out. And I got to tell you, man, I'm used to getting Twitter trolls, but it was more than just trolls that hit me. I got absolutely torched for this take. I know you were there in the Jim Caldwell era in Detroit.
Yeah.
And I think you've said the same exact thing. I might be following in your
Correct.
footsteps, Dan. So you have the floor. Knowing the organization as you do and knowing what Caldwell did there, I'll give you the floor on this subject.
Yeah, I share a lot of the same feelings as you with the situation, and I share the same feeling with Jim Caldwell. My overall overarching view would be this. The Lions organizationally have tried a lot of different things. Over the last, 20 years, they've tried a lot of things. Offensive-minded coaches, defensive-minded coaches, the hot coordinator, all this stuff. Only one of them has worked. Only one coach that they have hired has been successful. Now, maybe he hasn't climbed all the way to the top of the mountain, but only one guy had the culture right, had the locker room right, had the expectations right, and had the team playing like every single week. You believed, all right, the Lions, this is going to be a good game. And if they play the way they're capable of playing, they'll win that football game. And it was trending in the right direction. They had a quarterback in Matthew Stafford in really the prime of his career playing top 5, top 6 football. And so I sit back and go, all right, I know – listen, Rich, no one loves smart offensive football more than me. I'm a complete nerd when it comes to that stuff. So I can understand people going, no, you got to get your offensive coach. Really? Because everyone wants Sean McVay. Listen, I was with Sean. He's a unicorn. As great as he is when it comes to his X's and O's, he's a significantly better leader when it comes to organizational kind of galvanizing, foresight, all of the things that are going to be needed to be a great head coach. Sean excels at, and then he's also remarkably good at with the X's and O's. So I caution right now just find a really good offensive coordinator. No, the Lions need somebody that knows that organization, that knows the ins and outs of what works and what doesn't, knows that city, knows that communication. Now, if Jim Caldwell is available and he wants that job and he tells you, this is my offensive coordinator, I'm going to bring this guy as an offensive coordinator, and he's got a couple of names on the list, and that offensive coordinator runs a scheme or a style and sees football the way it needs to be seen right now in the NFL, then I think that it's negligent to not sit down and go, someone's got to prove to me that there's a better option than this, because I know this guy can do it. I know that he can get us heading in the right place the same way he did years ago.
So, Dan, I'll push back on the same stuff I got pushback on. One is that Caldwell was dreadful against teams with winning records. You could count on one hand, apparently, the number of times that a winning record team came in and lost to Caldwell's Lions. And two, maybe he was 8 games over 500, did get a couple of wild card appearances, but it's about winning championships, and he wasn't even close to that. So that was the pushback I got.
Okay, so I'll address the first one. Yes, we beat a lot of the kind of average teams and below average teams, and we played with a lot of the good teams, and we were never able to get kind of over that hump. Well, that's also because he was still in building mode. You know, they had just, and I would say this, Martin Mayhew was a guy as an ex-general manager that probably got fired or moved on from. And that was an incorrect move as well, because Martin had started to get some drafts going. Maybe he wasn't the Pittsburgh Steelers when it comes to the drafts, but he was starting to draft better. And it was really in lockstep that they were doing things together. And so I always tell people this, you know, during my first kind of go-around with the Lions, and people would ask, well, why were you guys so bad? I said, look at our draft. Look at our first-round picks. The first-round picks were miss after miss after miss. So to kind of build your organization and build your program to really start to become a team that consistently beats the good teams, because, again, there's only like 6 of them in the NFL, that takes time. So I can understand where people are coming from, but that's not something that usually happens on a consistent basis within the first 3 or 4 years of a head coach's role as that in that organization. And then I understand it's about championships. I get all that. But find me the last coach that walked in and just won a championship, that just walked in and goes, okay, first 3 years, I took a perennial basement team over 20 years and I won a Super Bowl with them. Like the Lions fans and their organization have to realize that this has to be stacked and stacked and stacked, and there is no quick fix. That's my point. They've tried to have the quick fix. They've tried that multiple times. It doesn't work there. It's not going to work there.
Dan Orlovsky here on the Rich Eisen Show. And I guess you can even just, well, obviously, nobody has just Aaron Rodgers sitting around. But the whole narrative of Matt LaFleur is going to have to teach his quarterback a system, or the old Leopard is going to have to change his spots. And Aaron Rodgers was grinding gears with Mike McCarthy, and it was just not going to work. Well, 13-3 last year, and now we saw the performance on Sunday night. Why has it worked for Matt LaFleur, in your estimation, in Green Bay, Dan?
Yeah, I think that it's worthy of us putting him into the conversation of one of the better coaches in football right now, and certainly in the running for Coach of the Year. I'd say this. Matt's got a great, I was on the set for Get Up with Greeny the moment that Matt LaFleur got the head coaching job.
Mm-hmm.
And I had history with him in two different places, in Houston and with the Rams. And I had said, this is going to work out perfectly. And Greeny had looked at me like, who? Matt LaFleur? What are you talking about? And I said, the best thing is Matt LaFleur will not back down from a strong personality in Aaron Rodgers. He will continue to push him and push back on him in a respectful manner, but in a challenging manner. And I think Aaron's one of those players. We came into the NFL the same year together. He's one of those players that wants to be challenged. He wants to be intellectually challenged. He wants to be challenged with motivation. He wants to be challenged with his ability to fully grasp what the plan is offensively and how to attack certain defenses. And I think the biggest thing that Matt's done is clarify things for him. He's made some stuff easy. You watch that team. It looks a lot like Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes is the greatest talent I've ever seen. There's some stuff there in that offense that is easy for him. It gives him a mental breather. It gives him a physical breather. And I think Matt's done a really good job with that in Green Bay. He knows what they're good at. He knows that Aaron's great at outside the pocket. Well, why? Because he can make throws on the move that other guys can't. It gives him the opportunity to create post-snap a little bit more, that he can move in space a little bit more. And so I think that he's got a really good feel for what they're good at. He doesn't expose them to kind of the deficiencies of their offense. He uses Devontae brilliantly. And I think the big thing is just understanding that Aaron wanted a coach that was going to bring him greatness, like they give him the opportunity to be great again. And that's why it's working so well in Green Bay.
So then why isn't it working in Tampa, I guess, Dan Orlovsky from ESPN here on the Rich Eisen Show? I mean, you just mentioned how Mahomes has some easy things. We talk about how elaborate that scheme is in Kansas City, but they also give some easy things. It also helps to give Tyreek Hill one-on-one coverage, as we saw Tampa Bay continuously do in that first quarter yesterday. But it was jarring to me again, Dan, to see Brady in the role of, can he keep pace with the other team's offense? That's been the narrative for Brady on the other foot for 20 years. But they lost that game in the first quarter. It was essentially done right there. What is going on there, and how can it be fixed to make Brady maybe more comfortable in that offense the last few weeks?
Yeah, the best way I can describe Tampa Bay right now is they are so dependent on an incredibly high level and really an unrealistic level of execution. Like they get 70 snaps, and they have to be so good, all 11 across the board, with their execution that it just challenges their offense and kind of minimizes their level of success. Because I think there's two things in the NFL that has really started to show itself a little bit on the back end of last year, and then it's been dominant this year, that are difference makers for the really good offenses in the NFL. Pre-snap motion, and I'm not just talking about one guy going from one side of the formation to the other. I'm talking like with speed and snapping the ball at the same time, because it creates leverage and angles for blocking and matchups and gives defenses a ton to look at. So you have to do that, and then you have to utilize play-action pass. And the Buccaneers don't do either of that. And so those things really minimize the necessity or the need for a high level of execution, because you're like, oh, well, I got you out in space versus a linebacker. Great. You don't need to be great. You just need to be good enough. And so that's why when I mentioned, like, it minimizes the need for this high level of execution when you do that stuff, and the Buccaneers don't. And so they're just so demanding on everybody on their offense to be just at their absolute best all the time. And that's just really bad coaching. And they're not doing things that Tom Brady is so kind of notorious for. Get to the line of scrimmage. Gronkowski's out there. Oh, there's a corner. Now I know it's zone. Okay, now I've cut half of my thinking, or half the time that I need to think, I've cut in half. And so I think that Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich are just stuck in their ways because they've seen it work before. No, I've seen this work with Carson Palmer or Andrew Luck or Big Ben. I know this offense is good. Well, that might be true, but it's not good right now. You have different people operating it, and they kind of expose themselves to way too many of their weaknesses offensively. Their protection, the deep ball. It happens way too much. The question, can it be fixed? How? They got 12 practices left. Like if it hasn't been fixed or altered since August, it's hard for me to think that over the next 4 or 5 weeks that they're going to remarkably or miraculously change who they are.
Last one for you, Dan, before I send you to the set of NFL Live, and you're taking everybody to kickoff, a part of the coverage of the worldwide leader in sports, taking you to kickoff of Monday Night Football between Seattle and Philadelphia. After Philadelphia lost its last game, Dan, the question was once again put to Doug Peterson about his quarterback, Carson Wentz, being the starter, and he basically said he's the starter and said if he turned to Jalen Hurts, that it would indicate to the team that the season is over. And then a few days later, when asked if Carson was, he was still a starter, he said, I would think so. Now we're hearing Hurts took some snaps with the ones over the weekend. What do you expect to see tonight for Philadelphia as both the Washington football team and Giants have already won this week?
Yeah, I think that Carson Wentz will take the great majority of the snaps in this football game. He'll be the starter. I would expect Jalen Hurts to be used in 2 specific areas, which is something that probably should have been happening more. 1, third down and, let's say, under 4 yards. Very situationally specific where you can utilize 11-on-11 football. You can kind of add in quarterback run and maybe potentially some RPOs to allow guys out in space. So I think that'll be a little bit more because this team has been bad on third down. And then the second would be very similar in the red zone, where you get down into the red zone and you can play 11-on-11 football. I do believe that they should get Carson Wentz off the field when Jalen Hurts gets on, because if they're going to bring Jalen Hurts on the field and still leave Carson Wentz on the field, you're playing 10-on-11. I have long said that both those guys should be in the backfield at the same time. That's when you can really get creative. That's when you can stress the defense. They haven't done it yet this year. I don't know why, because I think that's been a failure, but they need to play better. Carson needs to play better, but Jalen Hurts will have his impact, and I think in situational football.
Dan, appreciate the time. Like I said, I appreciate your work. I hope this is the first of many times you appear on this show. When you see Greeny next, tell him I said hi. Tell him that I would feel his pain, but I never thought I would name my children Sam and Darnold, okay, as he once told me. Hang in there. Just got 5 more games to go. That's it, 5 more to go. And then we get to...
That's the best news Jets fans had all year. So I appreciate it. It's an absolute honor, man. Grew up watching you, so anytime, it's a privilege.
I appreciate that, Dan. NFL Live with Dan Orlovsky and the cast of thousands later on ESPN at 4 Eastern, and then Monday Night Football tonight on the worldwide leader in sports. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.